and that there are a lot of people don't realize the services that are available in City Hall, the State House, and federal government as relates to help with street lights, potholes, trash removal, the bureaus that are in City Hall, and what we are destined to do. We have actually started working with groups in the Bowdoin, Geneva area. We have a coalition called Bowdoin Cares with our Richard Clater and a number of folks that are part of that group to find out why don't people vote and what would make them get involved in the political process from their personal experience, or why do people vote and what would make them continue to vote. So this is something that we're using as an organizing tool to get people invested in developing a guide that they'll use, they'll read with graphics and also easy read, not a bunch of bureaucratic terms, but a way to really teach our folks and teach ourselves the different services that are available. So we're looking to complete this by June. And so with the elections coming up, you'll be able to make an educated guess on which elected official you will be choosing to run for city councilor, district city councilors, or city councilors at large. Now, there are some special elections coming up on May 2nd. May 2nd is the special election. As some of you know, State Representative John Santiago has been appointed to Secretary of Veteran Affairs under the Healy Driscoll administration. And so that position will be, that state representative position will be open. So there's a couple of folks that will be running, and we're going to be getting some people into the studio to kind of talk about why they should be the candidate chosen. We also have some other town member meetings running. There's some elections going on on May 2nd. I know Milton has a town meeting, and there are other elections throughout the state. So pay attention, because this may affect you. And for those who may not live in Boston anymore, if you're living in various towns in the greater Boston area, whether it be Randolph or Brockton and other places, in Milton, there are town elections going on, and really get involved, because local politics is so important because it affects us. Now, I understand that Mayor Wu, proposed a $4.3 billion city budget for investment in schools, police, and early age education. So hopefully that will pass so that we can get better services and pay attention to the different services. There are budgets on the website, the City of Boston website, and we are looking to, we're looking to make sure that folks have access to this. Congratulations to Tito Jackson, who's opened up a dispensary downtown Boston, 7 floors, a bar, rooftop lounge, and he had over 1,600 people that came through the event. I was present to see him finally get it off the ground. It was a lot of hard work he put in to get that done. It's not easy being able to start a big business in Faneuil Hall. So congratulations to former City Council mayor candidate Tito Jackson and his team, so that they can continue to promote equity and access in the cannabis industry. So again, the city councilors, make sure you learn who your city councilors are. There are 9 district city councilors, and there are 3. I understand City Councilor Frank Banker is no longer running. He has decided not to run for re-election, as well as Kinsey Bach, who is a city councilor, district city councilor, represents Mission Hill, Back Bay, and a couple other parts of the city. And she has been appointed to the Boston Housing Authority to run that. So there's a lot of things going on in our city, and please pay attention so that you can get involved and and we will continue. I wanted to read an op-ed piece by the Banner that they had did on the SCOTUS needs to reflect on country's true values. If I could just read this editorial piece, and if you want to call in, have some thoughts on anything that we're talking about before our guest arrives, please do so. For a long time, we in this country have looked to the Supreme Court to level the playing field when it comes to injustice in our society. And this is the Bay State Banner. For decades, we have relied on decisions like Brown versus Board of Education that outlaw systemic discrimination in public schools, and the 1966 decision to ban poll taxes in state elections to keep our country's morale bending towards justice, as Martin Luther King Jr. famously said. But after the reversal of a woman's right to choose an abortion, it is clear that none of these landmark cases that we as Americans has assumed were settled laws are still accepted precedent. As we sit here wondering whether other landmark cases are threatened with being overwhelmed and our rights and freedoms and being taken away, we need only to look at the Supreme Court poster child for dubious ethics. Justice Clarence Thomas, he received his higher education at prestigious schools in New England, at the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Yale Law School in New Haven, but appears to have learned little about how to behave ethically as a public official. Over the past few months, a tremendous number of facts have come out about the hundreds of thousands of dollars a year worth of payola that Thomas has received in form of private jet flights and mega yachting vacations. Most of them, but not all, were paid by a billionaire named Harlan Crow. Crow also brought Thomas's mom's house in Savannah, Georgia, fixed it up, and by all accounts is letting her live there rent-free. This is where Thomas spent most of his childhood, in a modest home built by his enterprising grandfather. Crow has failed to respond to questions about the housing arrangement. His silence speaks volumes. Then, of course, there's all the inappropriate influence Thomas has on cases concerning his wife, Virginia, a right-wing Republican who appears to have been involved in planning and implementation the January 6th attempt to overthrow our freely and fairly elected government. Oh, did I forget to mention that Crow has a large collection of Nazi memorabilia. You can't make this stuff up. As one comedian recently equipped, this begs the question, does Clarence Thomas even know that he's black? Wow. All this would be funny if it was not for the fact that the future of our democracy and our civil rights are at stake. Over the next 2 years, the Supreme Court will be deciding many cases that could have tremendous consequences for our individual freedoms, corporate oversight, college access for students of color, and voting rights, all of which mean our literal democracy is hanging in the balance. What oversight is there on Supreme Court justice to hold them accountable when they appear to be taking payola in exchange for their votes? Thomas maintains the court's spare ethic rules allow him to receive hospitality from a personal friend like Crow. The view, however, is widely disputed by court scholars. The claim is that justices will regulate themselves and recuse themselves from any case if they have a conflict of interest. But we know that's not true with Clarence Thomas. He will not even recuse himself in a case against Monsanto, we had just recently left the company's board and was arguably still on the board when it made the decision that landed the agrochemical company in court. The very textbook description of conflict of interest. Thomas launched his rise to the High Court on Missouri, where Monsanto was based before being acquired by a foreign company. Since all this evidence of suspected payola has come out, Chief Justice John Robinson has done nothing to hold Thomas accountable. All these facts do not bode well well for the future of democracy, it is clearly time to require these justices to live up in the spirit of the laws that are sworn to uphold. When a Supreme Court justice takes what adds up to millions of dollars in payola over a few years and is in clear view of the world, this makes decisions that benefit the persons who paid him the payola in the first place. It's time to change the ethics rules or change the makeup of the court to restore the credibility of this once honored and cherished institution. It's time to change the court's makeup to begin to reflect on our country's true values. The Supreme Court needs to reflect on our country's true values. It's editorial by the Bay State Banner. Wow. So what do you think about that, man? I mean, you know, Pastor, we are trying to get people engaged politically, nationally, locally, regionally, and when they see things like this, it's very discouraging. It's really hard to convince people that their vote matters. I've been out, you know, meeting with groups to do voter registration as we're working on our Know Your Government guide, and some of our folks that are running agencies are not even registered. Yes, which is not good. And some are registered and they're not voting. Massachusetts, out of 32 countries surveyed in the 2020 presidential election, Massachusetts black community came in last place. That's daunting. That is really discouraging. So with that said, I'm making an all-out effort in our 30-year anniversary to really buckle down and literally start over, build on what we've done, start to get people engaged as we did in 92, to really get people back on track. Because when you look at the service that are being offered in the city of Boston, out of the 22 neighborhoods, there are some neighborhoods that look like the suburbs. There are some neighborhoods look like they haven't been swept, the streets haven't been cleaned, the sewage, they're not cleaned out, the garbage is not taken out, and they have cleaning services. That's what I can't understand. So that's why it's so important people get out to the polling locations. For those that are participating in the special election, if it's in your district, May 2nd, polls open at 7 o'clock, close at 8 p.m. Or for the primary election, September preliminary election, September 12th is the date for the preliminary election. And August 22nd, I believe August 22nd is the last day you can register to vote. April 22nd is the last day you can vote for the May 2nd election. So make sure you get yourselves registered. You can go online and register on the City of Boston Elections Department line to get registered to vote. We are really going to be knocking on doors, going to special events. Dunk the Vote's going to be showing up as we did over the years, but I think we need a little extra push. And if you're interested in supporting our efforts, you can send your Cash App DTV 2020 or go to our website dunkthevoteforever.org, so that we're able to hire people to help us canvass, knock on doors. Speaking of which, did you hear about the young man, what was it, in Tennessee, who knocked on the door? Was it Tennessee? He knocked on the door, the 85-year-old white male.
He rang the bell.
Rang the bell to pick up his little brothers. He's still alive. And I hear he's doing well. But he went to go pick up his little brothers. And what was really disappointing, being shot, going to other neighbors' doors, people wasn't opening their doors.
And the other thing, though, is that this young person, this older man, wasn't arrested at first.
Right.
It took people protesting in the streets for the police to finally say, we're going to arrest this person. He shot first.
This was in Kansas City?
I don't know exactly. I don't have the story. I don't have a paper like you in front of you.
But this is local.
Oh, but But there was another one that happened a couple days ago. This was different. It was a young white child,
Right.
very young. The ball went into the neighbor's yard, and the neighbor had a gun, and shot the child, shot and grazed the child, and also the father tried to protect his daughter, and he got sprayed all up in his back. The person who shot the family was black. The family was white, so you got the reverse. But again, it's guns
And then
in the hands of the wrong people.
And then there was another incident when a white young lady with her friends moved into her driveway, and she got shot and killed.
Yeah.
So the gun culture is really out of control. It's gotten to a point where there has to be safeguards in place. And I know there's a debate about having police back in schools. And I know there's been some tension with, the law enforcement, and particularly with the black community in Boston and beyond. But I think there has to be a balance, because now these young people are just carrying guns, they're shooting. And I know if I was in a school, I would want some protective guards for my children. I mean, I have a grandson, and I don't feel safe going in various schools, so there has to be something. And we got to be very careful with these agendas, these progressive agendas, like, decriminalization and this, that, whatever. We're living in a real jungle. We have to be very careful. I understand the effect it does have on children, but I also understand the effect when someone loses their life. So I think that we need to really take a good look at what the people are saying in our communities. Have our city councilors, have our state representatives, our public officials, have they talked to the community? How do the community feel about, the protecting our children in these schools? How does the community feel? Not what an opinion on some theoretical analysis or what have you. What do the people, the residents of the city of Boston? And I think that by going to the polling locations, that's when people will pay attention. Some of these city councilors and these elected officials do not pay attention to you because you do not go to the polls. We have a low turnout, and people can get upset if they want.
It's our fault.
It's our fault.
Something, I made a comment a couple years ago, and I made a comment, and I said that black folk in Boston are not voting, and somebody refuted that and said, don't say that, and that's not true. We are voting. The numbers are not as significant as we would like, but we are voting and doing better, and I'm going, where's the evidence?
The numbers are not there. And it could be many reasons, because of, displacement, gentrification, will spread all over the place.
People being pushed out.
People being pushed out.
They're voting in other cities and towns.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Some are still registered here.
Right.
And if you don't fill out the census, they take you off the voting rolls. A lot of people don't know that. And I think that we need to continue to remind people, if you don't vote in every election, what happens if you don't fill out that census form, you are scrubbed. You can still go to the polling locations and vote provisional voting. That's what they call provisional voting. You cannot be denied.
Yeah.
Now, in other cities and towns and states, there are some other routes. There's no universal way of voting. I've learned that in my work in the administration, under the Patrick administration, when I was out in other parts of the state. Everything does not run the same. Everything does not run the same in different parts of the neighborhood. Yeah. And so when you're starting to get scrubbed off these voting rolls, that's a form of voter suppression.
Yeah, but some people do not know that they're being scratched.
Right.
Some don't even care one way or the other because they're not participating. There needs to be a movement. For example, I'm just going to use a name. I won't use a name. Yesterday or the day before, there was a pastor in the studio who was developing something called the Black Men's Political Task Force.
Black Male Political Task
Right,
Force.
so he
correct.
was talking about that, and it sounds like he's very ambitious ideas around how to motivate people to get out and vote. I hope they can make a difference, but so many different movements, but if the needle isn't moved at all in our city, all these movements, all these things that people are doing, it's a waste of time, or they're not doing what they say they're going to do. We need the needle to be moved. Unless Black Boston is registered and goes and votes and moves the needle, which is putting people in office, taking them out of office, again, we're not going to be taken seriously, Ron.
My comment, as far as the Black Political Task Force, at least they're moving. I mean, there were times when I started Dunk the Vote in 92, folks weren't even moving. They weren't even moving. They weren't even thinking about voting. And I'm glad that now we have all these political operatives. But what I think what has happened is that a lot of our political operatives are too cute or too good to knock on doors. They're too cute and too good to go talk to people. They're so busy, want to get in the paper, get quoted in the paper, be recognized with various awards, and the people in the city of Boston are suffering. Literally. They are suffering. And so when you are talking about leadership, let's lead by example. Let's not get to a point. There's been many people, Ron, you shouldn't be out here knocking on doors. That's what they tell me. And I'm like, well, how do you think campaigns work? You know, how do you think I was able to get these folks, hundreds of thousands of people registered? That wasn't from I sat on a computer, you know? How do you think you raise money? You got to pick up the phone. You got to talk to people. You got to meet people. You can't just be sticking your chest out, acting as if you're doing something. And we have a lot of that. I was talking to a former elected official, and she and I were like talking, and I actually asked her what is her political ambitions. And I said to her, I said, you know what? I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's, or I'm just getting to a point that I'm just disgraced. But what I'm seeing in a lot of these public offices, the works are not getting done. We have a caller on the line. Caller, you're live on Boston Black News.
Good morning. This is Brother Jamal. How y'all doing?
Hey, Brother Jamal. How you doing, man?
Very well. And not for nothing, this is why, Ron, you got so much work done, because nobody has ever accused you of being too cute.
You're so crazy. Thank you. Thank you. You had to get it in.
Yeah. I start with that.
Yeah.
But seriously though, really, I've told you this, and there's people that sometimes people may think brothers are at odds, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not an at odds person. I'll give you two great examples. You and then Chip. And you and Chip, y'all are cousins too, right? Are y'all related?
He's related to my ex-wife, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you and Chip, both people who I have not agreed with all the time publicly, right?
Right.
But what we can say is, and as proud, like you talk about the cute people, right? As proud as they are about accomplishing absolutely nothing, right?
Right.
If I were you or like Chip, I would have a fluorescent tattoo on my forehead, because what you did, this black guy from Mission Hill, you went and registered. What to date? What is the number to date?
Over 100,000 with it's over 100,000, because when I worked with the United Independent Party, we registered 35,000 in 1 year.
See, so that's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
That, sir, is to be applauded and saluted.
Mm-hmm.
Chip, with his crazy self, this man has helped, a last count I had was over 10,000 kids. At least get into college.
Right.
That is to be applauded and saluted. Meanwhile, other people are getting awarded because they farted this morning.
Right.
You see, so I don't get it, because there is a big point of attention or focus, and why I called was because y'all were talking about the Black Men Political Task Force,
mm-hmm.
which I heard on the radio the other day. I called in. I asked a simple question. It, in my opinion, went left. The question is, And this is for everybody who's organizing. And this is what my elders did to me. Pastor Wall, you may remember back in the day, 60s and 70s, people would say, hey, man, what's going on? Or,
Right.
What's your politic?
Right.
Okay? And at that point, you would state who you are. When I ran for office, I know to this date, I think I'm the only person who affirmed in public I am a black nationalist and a Pan-Africanist.
Right.
That's my politic.
Right.
Okay? So when we have a black male political task force, and you say, what is the politic? That should be an easy question. My point is, when you were doing Dunk the Vote, although it is quote-unquote a nonpartisan, group, let's be clear here. It's not like you were trying to register people to vote for the Republican Party, right?
No, not at all.
You see?
Right.
Now, of course, you can't say that because it's like, hey, I just want to give you the right to vote.
Right.
Exercise your right to vote. You can ultimately vote for who you want to, but at some point, we're hoping that we're bringing in people who are like-minded, who are going to vote the way that we do in terms of the principles that we've identified.
Right. Right. It's interesting you mentioned that, Jamal. When I look back and reflect on the last 30 years, when I was registering people to vote, they didn't know the difference from a Democrat, Republican, or unenrolled. And then go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that's why I've harped on over the years. We do so much voter registration drives,
right?
But we don't do voter education drives,
right?
And see, people are more apt to participate in something that they know about.
They know about.
I don't know about basketball, so I don't go to Celtic games because
right.
I feel like a fool there.
Right.
You see?
Right.
I can't do nothing. I can't enjoy nothing but the cheerleaders.
Right.
You see? So if you educate people about a thing and this is what it is, then they're like, oh wow, I like this game.
Right.
Oh, now I can appreciate. Oh, that was a forward pass. Oh wow. Oh, that was a 3-point play. Oh, okay. You see, now they're up to speed with you, and then they can say, oh, okay, it opens a new world. That's
right.
how we do it. And if we look at our kids.
Right.
These kids were not born playing video games.
Right.
But boy, do they take to it.
They take to it, don't they?
When given the opportunity, and the opportunity is mostly provided by the parents, because the ones complaining, man, my son spends all his time on the Xbox.
Right.
Who bought him the Xbox?
Right.
See?
And I'm glad you mentioned it because I've learned over the years myself the importance of teaching and educating our people because, what I've learned, it wasn't because I went to school for politics or civic engagement and all that. It's because of experience. And in our 30 years, that's why we went with the voter guide. That's why we're doing the Know Your Government guide and make it easy read for our people so that they can learn and be invested. I had mentioned earlier in the broadcast, I don't know if you heard, we're working with some folks in Bowdoin Cares, Geneva Ave, Bowdoin, to get their input on why don't they vote, why do you vote, or what would continue to get you to vote, and the kind of frequently asked questions so they're invested in a project that'll get them involved. And any other ideas? Yes, we started out as basketball. They used to laugh at me. They were like, oh, Ron, you're just using basketball to get people registered. And then after the 1,500 in 3 days we registered, then they started paying attention. But you're so right. It's so important that we educate our community. And thank you for calling in, man. We have a special guest here. You're more than welcome to stay on. You're familiar.
No, I'm going to let y'all do your thing, but I just want to say once again,
okay,
brother, salute you. Because the work you've done over the years, as crazy as you are.
Yeah.
And, we joke and we laugh and all that, but at the end of the day, you got her done, sir.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Sir.
And I hope to do more. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
You better.
Yep. We have in the studio a good friend of mine, someone who I'm very proud of, who's running for a seat in Brookline. What, teammate?
Yep.
Well, I know your another name, but I ain't going to say it. But we got to make sure we keep the names right. You're running for a seat. It's town member meeting Brookline. One of my favorite places. So why don't you tell us your story? Just tell us as if, so folks can get familiar with you.
Okay. Well, I got lucky to live there, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So that was that sort of just came out of nowhere. Because I grew up in Mission Hill, as you know. I grew up in Mission Park.
Right.
And my
right
mom
across
still,
the bridge. Right?
Yeah, and my mom still lives there. And so I just wanted to stay close to her, especially during the pandemic. And I just got really lucky with this apartment.
Okay.
So I right away when I moved to Brookline, I noticed they're very involved with voting.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm like one of the few brown and black people that live there,
right.
If you don't show up, they notice,
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, okay, so I was encouraged to vote and I had to do a bunch of research, almost immediately after living there or moving there. So I never thought I'd ever become I'm not a political person. But one of my neighbors, she immediately planted that seed or saw that could be a, possibility. And I was just like, no, I'm just voting. I don't want to, I don't know anything about politics.
Mm-hmm.
So she just called me out of the blue, and honestly, at the last minute, I got enough registered, certified, registered voters signatures.
Right.
Signatures to get me on, even
the
to the ballot to be voted on for, a seat.
Right.
Uh-huh. So that happened. So I was like, okay, well, now that, this is happening, let's just do it. So I'm one of those type of people that, I'm going to do something 100% or forget it,
Right.
So I was all in. I was like, okay. So then, and now, and then I had, the most important thing is to get endorsed by different committees.
Right.
And honestly, because I'm so new, I was just like, there's no way I'll be endorsed. But I actually got 4 endorsements.
Okay. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I'm endorsed by PAX, Brookline by Design, Brookline for Everyone, and the biker.
Wow.
The bicycling.
So how long have you been working on the campaign?
Oh my God. It's only been just a couple of weeks.
Oh, so
and voting.
And this is a special election.
This is a special election, and May 2nd is so I'm precinct 4, so I can only get votes from Brookline residents who live in precinct 4.
And do you know the demographics of that area?
Yeah, it's wider than I thought. So it's definitely Walnut Street where I live. You know where the fire station is on Route 9.
Yep.
So on the other side of Route 9 is Walnut Street. So Walnut Street, half of that, I think my side of the street is precinct 4, but then it stretches out into behind Brookline Avenue.
Right.
And to that area. Yeah, so I'm not sure.
Over near the Muddy River, that area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There's
okay.
an
Brookline
apartment complex right in front of Brookline Village T station.
Okay.
There's an apartment complex. That whole apartment
I
complex.
used to go swimming over there.
Oh, for real? Oh, okay.
Yeah, over there, that area. Actually, we used to hang over, which they did not want to include as Mission Hill, not that part of Brookline, on the other side, Longwood Medical area.
Yeah.
Children's Inn, all them areas. That is actually Mission Hill.
Really?
But yes, it is. It's Mission Hill, but they because they didn't want to be affiliated with Mission Hill, they named it Longwood Medical Area because of the negative scrutiny. But anyway, that's going on. So you surprised me when you said that you're not political, because you are political and don't even know it, because you grew up under political leadership when you worked at the Tobin.
Yes.
Right? Because you was a Tobin, and that was a city check.
Yes. And Governor Dukakis was the one who approved that program, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not.
He gave us an award. That's why I remember.
Okay.
So it was and I actually have a copy of that award.
Still, huh?
Yeah,
okay. So
from the 19th.
So it started then.
It started then.
And see, you may not have been a political candidate, but you was involved in civic engagement, helping other teenagers. You remember, right?
That's
It's
true,
been
yeah.
that long, so you got to
Yeah.
make that connection, right?
Yeah.
So you had talked about like I was reading your bio, and you know, like some of the things you would do for residents in reference to climate change and affordable housing. What are your ideas, and what would make a person vote for you to be a member of the town?
Well, there's different ways to. Again, I'm new at at learning how to create opportunities like that, or somehow vote on. But they already actively are working on affordable housing in Brookline. So I think any new development that is developed, about at least 15% of that property has to be affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's already in place.
Question. When you say affordable housing, affordable to who?
Exactly. No. So affordable to, hopefully, not just middle class, but also like lower income as well.
Okay. Because, we have a lot of folks talk about affordable housing, and then you go apply for affordable housing.
It's like, I can't afford this.
This is not affordable. Maybe affordable. It may not be $5,000 a month for a one bedroom, but it's $4,500.
Right. They'll give you like a 10% discount.
Right. Exactly. So what about climate change?
So they believe in eliminating gas emissions. So they would prefer that everyone drive electric vehicles, but we just don't have the infrastructure for that.
Right.
So that has to be in place. Like they say that by 2035, all of us will be driving electric vehicles, and there won't be any gas cars anymore.
Right.
But we just don't have the infrastructure for that. Like I don't see enough, chargers, for cars.
Not only enough chargers, but also them cars are expensive.
They're expensive, and they are not very good for long distance driving.
Right.
And I drive for a living, so that's important to me. I have to be able to, I don't want my car to take 2 hours to charge, so I'm not ready for that.
Right.
But, I really love hybrid cars, but they're seen just as the same as a gas emitting car. So maybe in maybe in the future, when the more cars you make, obviously, the more electric vehicles you make, the cheaper they'll get. Like you can get a Tesla for, in the $20,000 range, a used Tesla, even now, like it's very basic. And it will take a lot longer to charge, but they are there. They are getting cheaper.
Where are the charging locations? I mean, it's
random, I do see them around, like at gas stations, like you'll see a few of them, right? And maybe even in other locations. I'm not sure, but yeah.
It's interesting. Politico had an article, which is a political magazine newsletter that they send out daily, and they were talking about how we're looking to go to electric cars by 2030. You said 2025, 2030. However, many of the elected officials that are fighting for climate change and so forth are driving gas cars. So now they're talking about they're going to be changing over. They kind of listed some names. I won't go down the list, but it was just interesting how they shift. And we were talking about it, Pastor Wall and I, about even on the radio. Then if you don't have satellite radio, you don't hear anything. I mean, it's really bad as far as stations, FM, AM, and I understand they're going to be doing away with a lot of them. Is that still true? Yeah, so it's so you turn on you might as well, you have to have really satellite radio or your phone, right. Because things are just being outdated. I'm just interested because
just like you can't get regular TV without cable.
Exactly.
Not, you know what I mean? Not anymore.
So
you have to pay for everything, basically.
You have to pay for everything.
Yeah. Everything.
So I'm just thinking as a town hall meeting, because when I lived in Milton, I no longer live in Milton. I moved back to the city.
Okay.
And they always asked me to run as a town member, and I was like, "What do you guys do?" I mean, I really didn't know. So I'm glad that you are running for this seat, because there are a number of seats, political seats, people can hold to help their community that we don't even know about. You know what I mean? Because even when I lived in Milton, I didn't get to know my elected officials because we have what do you call it? There's not a mayor in Milton. They're what they call. I'm losing my frame of thought.
State representative?
No, selectmen.
Oh,
They have
select board.
They
Like
have
the select board.
select boards, and so forth. They have state reps. They have the Congresswoman is Ayanna Presley. They have certain parts of Milton that's broken up. But I didn't really know because I did most of my work in Boston and throughout the state. Because when Duvall ran, I didn't have to do any work because he was from Milton, so I kind of like ignored that. But these town hall meetings members vote on various ordinances in business, correct?
Yes. So there's like an MBTA zoning program right now
Right.
that the town has to vote on. So deciding, on whether or not like they want to offer up Harvard Street, basically, to build 4-story buildings on top of the commercial buildings.
Right.
So, the question about that is like, okay, do you want to offer up Harvard Street, which is where all of most of the commercial, all of the little bakeries and stores,
Right.
are like, so if they do that, will like the ground level, still be, commercial and then just build up,
Right.
So it's like, cause that way, there'll be more taxes, cause like commercial, buildings pay more taxes.
Right.
So then residents will pay, less tax when you have like commercial.
Right.
So that's my goal. Like, I'm hoping that that's what'll happen, and they just won't get rid of, the commercial buildings at the bottom level. Or zoning. Like, there's something about zoning. So like,
Right. I'm going to bring it back home because now you're making me think about the importance of local politics, right? My mom was one of the founders of Roxbury Tin to Harvard. Before Mission Park was built, we used to live on Kempton Street. And my brothers and sisters and I and my mom, she would take us to these meetings at Mass Mental. They had the meeting space and so forth. And we were like, what are you going to these meetings? And we would play on the basketball court while she's in the meeting with Ball Parks and Teresa Parks and all the folks they named a building after, except my mom.
Wow.
But it's but the importance of being involved in your community, because once you're elected, you're going to find out so much what goes on in Brookline that you would never known.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Very true. Yeah.
You'll meet the people. Like you said, wow, Brookline PACs, they endorsed me. Brookline Bikers, whatever, the different groups that have endorsed you. You will find out the services, the resources, the access, that it's like a club. And if you're not involved, you'll get racially profiled. You'll get denied. You will not even know what's going on in your community. So, and the reason why I'm saying this, because it's so important that people pay attention, because there's these little groups that are meeting. I was walking down out downtown the other day, the public gardens. And before you go to the Boston Common, there's that other park when you're going up Boston Street.
Yeah.
And I seen these little white ladies like clipping the shrubs and picking up trash. I said, wait a second, what's going on there? I thought it was because of Earth Day week or something, right? I thought it was Earth Day. And